The most important lesson I've learned as a freelancer is saying no. I ended up being offered a gig that would equate to sort of maybe 3-4 hours a day. It was paying me more than my full-time role.
What do you think South Africans bring to the table?
And speak English fluently. We are really hard workers.
If you're looking for a remote gig, it's a great idea to go through an agency because there is a degree of protection that they can offer you.
My recommendation to most people who are thinking of going freelance is start with the people who already know and trust you. They may not hire you, but they'll be able to recommend you to someone who does.
Hello, and welcome to South Africa Tech Marketers, where I uncover the journeys of marketers who are thriving in South Africa and beyond. My name is Kirsty Lang. I'm a senior content writer working remotely in Cape Town for a tech company called Buffer. And my guest in my virtual studio today is similarly working for international brands, but multiple because she is a freelancer. So it's going to be a little bit different today. I'm very excited to get into all this. But before we do, my spiel. This show is brought to you by the Global Talent Company, which aims to help marketers based in South Africa find their dream remote jobs at incredible tech companies all over the world. So if you're a marketer looking for your next gig, or you're a company looking to hire South African talent, which I definitely recommend, you can check out their website, globaltalent.co, and we'll put the link in the show notes as well. But today with me is Shea Karssing, who is a freelance writer based in the Midlands in KZN. She has been freelancing for about 6 years and has some wonderful experiences working both with South African clients and internationally, so much so that she has literally written the book on it. Shea, thank you so much for making time today.
Thanks, Kirsty. Great to be here with you.
I have so many questions about freelancing. I have sort of freelanced, but never kind of full time. And, it's something that I've been thinking about a lot. And I think, to your point, it's definitely something we've been speaking about before we started recording. So after side hustling for her entire working life, Shea decided to take the plunge into freelancing 6 years ago and has never looked back. Shea is always learning, often the hard way, about ways to improve her services, hone her skills, and grow her freelance business. So yes, as I said, many questions about all that. Shea, I think the best thing to do is just to kind of backtrack. Tell us where you started in your career and how did you get to where you are now? Take us on that journey.
Sure. So I've always loved writing. As a kid, I had this little poetry book that was super twee and super cringy when I look back at it now. But I've always loved writing. So I ended up studying journalism at Rhodes University. And like many of my compatriots, we ended up not doing journalism whatsoever.
Yeah.
And
shout out
kind
to
of
the journalists.
segued. Shout out to the journalists. You guys are doing God's work out there, but it's not for me. And many of us, my colleagues included, ended up in the marketing field because it's somewhere where you can use those kind of skills in, I guess, a more commercially friendly way. So I ended up in marketing and I was working as an in-house marketing manager. And I did that for 3 different companies. And I loved my job, all my jobs that I had. Awesome colleagues, great challenges. But I found I had sort of a 2.5-year itch. Every single time. I just was unable to hold down a job for more than 2.5 years before starting to look to the next thing. And throughout that journey of a full-time role, I was also side hustling with a bit of writing jobs here and there, mainly through friends who knew that I enjoyed writing and would give me their overflow work, running their own freelance businesses. So I continued with that on the side. And then I started thinking maybe, I could take on a little more. So I started looking myself at some of the gigs out there. And I ended up being offered a gig that would equate to sort of maybe 3-4 hours a day. And it was paying me more than my full-time role. So either my salary was really crap or probably a bit of both, or it was just a great opportunity that came across my desk. So then it became a no-brainer and I was kind of forced to take the leap, excited to take the leap, but it is a leap and it is daunting. But when money talks, it really gives you the incentive to get going. So I had that chat with my boss and went full-time freelance. And that was in 2017 and I've never looked back.
Amazing.
And I'm almost coming up to what would have been my, I guess, third job in this time, 2.5 years, and I'm still here. So clearly something's going right, and I found my niche.
I love that because it's such a different, I mean, there is a lot of insecurity that comes with working freelance. And this is something that I've encountered as well, working for a remote tech company that hires globally. And I know this is not the same for a lot of other companies, but I work on a contract basis. So I don't have the protections that a lot of South African folks will have. And I'd imagine that you feel similarly, Shea. That kind of safety net of, UIF or retrenchment pay, that's not something that I have. I could be let go tomorrow. Hopefully that doesn't happen. And Shea, you could lose your clients tomorrow. This is a dark note to start on, but I think I really want to kind of get that out of the way. Yeah, for people who think, oh, that's not for me, even though I can set my own hours, even though I could potentially be earning more money, that's a scary leap. How did you take that plunge and feel secure in doing that?
So I think the fact that I started by side hustling meant that I already had a bit of a inkling, a little bit of a base of a business. I wasn't starting completely from scratch. I had, I guess, clients. They were clients that I could then let them know, hey, I've actually got more time now. I'm not working full time. So my recommendation to most people who are thinking of going freelance is to dip your toe out of your hours of your full-time job if you're full-time employed. Not only for the fact that you're getting clients, but also valuable experience, because something that I learned the hard way is that, sure, you can be the best website developer, the best virtual assistant, the best copywriter in the entire world. But if you lack business acumen, you're not going to make it as a freelancer. And for me, I came from a family of employees, not entrepreneurs. It was never a discussion in our home, running a business. It was go get a job, work your way up the ranks, stay with the same company for 30, 40 years, which both of my parents kind of did. So it was not something I was exposed to. And I don't feel like we did a lot of that at school either. And then I was off at varsity and into full-time roles. So that was a really big step for me, was learning how to become not a writer, but a businesswoman.
Right. Because you're everything for your business. You're not, you're doing admin, you're doing accounts, you're doing marketing, sales. That I think would probably be the biggest hurdle that I would have to overcome, especially things. And I don't know if this is a South African trait, but like I am awkward about talking about money. And I find a lot of South Africans are. So like kind of having to chase people who haven't paid you. And obviously you have to do that because that's your income, but that's tricky. How do you handle
even
stuff
sending
like that?
Quotes?
Oh my gosh, yes. Is this too much? Is it okay? Please don't be mad at me.
So I think there's no magic bullet because, with time and with experience comes confidence. Some people obviously have a more innate sense of confidence and assertiveness. That's why I'd urge people to back yourself, because no one else is going to do that for you. You have to be your own advocate, and you have to you're the one driving your business. No one is behind you telling you which targets you need to achieve or which training you need to do. You really have to take the initiative. And if, freelancing isn't for everyone. I love to promote the profession, and I wish more people would pursue it, because I'm sure there are more people out there who do have that kind of drive. But if you don't, that's also okay. If you are risk averse, if you're not particularly self-driven, if you prefer someone to sort of tell you what to do, it's probably not for you, to be honest, because those are some of the things that are a little bit harder to learn than the business skills and the skill itself. So my advice to people is, if it's something that you want to dip your toe in, start with a side hustle. That'll give you also an idea of, well, am I open to these kind of risks? Am I confident enough to do this? And then you can build those skills over time before you dive in head first.
Yeah, I love that. That is such great advice about kind of taking things on part-time. If you have a bit of time in the evening, on the weekend, if you do want to kind of work your way into that industry. A side hustle is a great way to approach it. Also, just to test the waters to see if that is a viable thing for you to do. I'm sure you're, whether you're a writer, whether you're a web designer, whether you're a graphic designer, I'm sure you're wonderful at your craft, but being good at your craft doesn't necessarily translate into being a good solopreneur or freelancer, because there are all those other things that come with it. And that's something, so a lot of what you've said has really resonated with me now, Shea, because I like the security of, I don't have to worry about chasing invoices for my full-time gig. And that's wonderful. I don't have to worry about that admin. I can just focus on the work. And I'm lucky that I do have a flexible job, so I can set my own hours to a degree, but not to the degree that you do, Shea. So there's such a give and take involved. And I think you kind of need to be aware of those risks going in. So that's great advice of just kind of dipping your toe in the water. So for folks that do want to dip their toes in, where did you get your first clients? You mentioned kind of you picked up overflow work from friends. How did you navigate that?
So definitely something that I always advocate for people starting out is to start with your own network. So you can have dreams and aspirations of having a multinational client base of blue chip clients, and that's great. Put a pin in that and start with the people who already know and trust you. It is really the most seamless way. And when I talk about your network, I don't mean sort of creepy stalking people on LinkedIn who you have tenuous connections with and trying to sell your services. I'm talking about your crew, your people. Even if they will never become a client, that's not the point. The point is that they become your advocate. So, I mean, no one wants to talk about work all day, but when you're at a braai with friends, let them know that you're starting this new venture, because it's not about them necessarily. They may not hire you, but they'll be able to recommend you to someone who does. So I recommend really talking about your business, letting people know what you do, set up random coffee dates with ex-colleagues or people in the industry. And the goal is not necessarily to get a client. The goal, like I said, is to get an advocate, because what I found is that by working through my network, it means I don't have to go through these lengthy sales process and multiple proposals and discovery calls and that take up so much of your time and actually don't leave you with enough time to do your real work. With a referral, you often find you don't even have a kind of sales meeting, because it's come with that stamp of approval from a trusted source. The client will say, great, you're it, let's go. And then you can build your business from there. And so the snowball effect of starting with your circle and moving outwards, I totally recommend. And if people do need any help with that, I actually have on my website, I've got a tab for freebies for freelancers, and I've got like a networking challenge, an email challenge. So 1 week with prompts to help you reach out to people you know. And I've had really great success, and people have emailed me back to say, this is amazing. I got 3 new clients this week, and that's why I do what I do. And it really makes me happy. So please, if you need a bit of a kick in the pants, go to my website, grab that networking checklist and the email challenge. And then I'd love to hear from you if it works. Please do.
I'm totally going to do this. This is so fascinating. Okay, we will definitely, won't you just, so your website is sheakarssing.com.
Correct.
Right? Excellent
yes.
web address.
Not the easiest name to spell, so maybe put it in the show notes.
Absolutely. We will do that. That is wonderful. It's so fascinating hearing you talk about this, because it's resonating with me so much. And my husband is starting his own business. And so much of what he's been doing now. So he works in IT, completely unrelated. If anyone needs a good IT company, shout out. But so he's starting his own business, and so much of what he's been doing now, he's kind of started like he started really in the weeds, kind of, okay, this is how I'm going to set things up. These are the tools I'm going to use, and that's what he loves. That's what he's good at. For me, that would be getting into the writing. But you can't really do that when you don't have any clients. So he's really, really been going to his network, talking to people, and it's not, our next door neighbor who's going to need to hire an IT company at some point. It's our next door neighbor's golf buddy. And I think I love that point that you made about finding advocates. So you're not going to your friends being like, hey, do you want to hire a marketer, a freelance marketer, a freelance IT person, whatever it is? You're saying, hey, do you know anyone? Or just putting this on your radar and they want to help you. And even kind of speaking to my own experience, having hired freelancers in marketing, a recommendation from a colleague. The freelancers we work with now at Buffer were recommended to us by other people. And that stamp of approval from someone you trust is just, you can't beat that. That's such a great system.
Because in the same way that as a freelancer, you don't want to be going through a lengthy sales cycle, neither does your client. They want to know, okay, I've got someone who can get the job done and they're going to do it right.
Yes.
So, it benefits both.
Yes, I love that. Okay, I've gone way off track, Shea. I had a whole bunch of questions and I'm just like getting super into the weeds on stuff that I'm personally very curious about. Okay, we've kind of covered that. I was going to ask you what advice you would give to someone early in their career who wants to end up where you are. I mean, we've touched on that, but is there anything else that you'd like to add to that topic?
Well, definitely read my book. Shameless plug.
No, it was written. I'm going to go and download
exactly
this
for you
straight away. I need it right now.
So, yeah, basically, it's a freelancing 101 to help you get started. So that would be my first step. And then we've spoken about starting with a side hustle. We've mentioned reaching out to your network. And I think something that you touched on with regards to your husband's business is he was setting up his processes and, doing kind of the admin side to get started.
He loves it. He loves it,
which is great.
Such a tool junkie. Yes.
A caution that I do give to new freelancers too is not to get too stuck in the weeds there. Don't overthink it and don't chase perfection. I mean, so often you'll find someone who wants to start their own business and they'll say, oh, but I don't have a website. And then they'll spend money and time that they don't have creating a website and tinkering with it and choosing whether they're going to use the sage green or olive green for the background. And
we've been so deep on website colors in the past week. So you are preaching to the converted here.
I love the color of your wall, by the way.
Thank you. This is my brand. It's a bit Nedbank currently.
I love a green.
It's green for everyone. Yeah. Anyone listening, go and check out the YouTube video of this conversation to see my wonderful green wall. This is my personal brand.
Love it. So great choice, but I hope you didn't spend however many, days and weeks and months on it. Oh. So I must be honest, in my business, I just went for it. And I only got a website maybe 5 years in.
Fascinating. Okay. That's amazing.
And I must say, best decision ever. I'm so glad I did. It definitely has increased my credibility and my reach. But I needed to get my business to a certain point before it made sense for me to actually do that. And I feel like it's not cheap. No.
There are a lot of
and by the time I had a website, and then by the time I had already built that confidence that comes with seeking larger clients and seeking international clients. So again, the snowball effect. And I'm not saying don't have a website. I'm just saying don't let that hold you back. And the website is an analogy for any kind of process that's preventing you from starting your own thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, I hear that. As someone who loves web design, I still need to set up my website. I know it's going to take me years to get it to where I want it. But to your points about that, I mean, there are many ways to have a very quick and easy website if you do want to have that level of credibility. I'm not even talking, I mean, yes, there are wonderful no-code tools. There's WordPress, but your LinkedIn page could effectively be your landing page that you send people to. There are some wonderful ways you can include links to your work, portfolios, testimonials. Also, another shameless plug for Buffer. We have a very simple website building tool. It's kind of it's called Buffer Start Page, and it is the best. If you want to see what it looks like, go and check out my LinkedIn profile. I linked to it there. I've got all sorts of things on there. I've got my desk set up because that's the question I get asked most because I make videos about that on LinkedIn and TikTok. I've got, links to my Buffer work, links to my podcast. It's kind of between a link in bio tool and a website. And it's a very good first step. And it'll take you maybe 10 minutes to set up as opposed to
amazing
the 3 years it would take me to build a website. Shea, brilliant. Okay. So you mentioned a thread I want to pull on now, international clients. And obviously working with international clients comes with a level of gravitas and probably money that you wouldn't necessarily get working with South African clients. Tell me about how was that did you find those gigs through your network, or was that something you explicitly set out to do with emails and, your networking process?
So a bit of both. So networking, yes. I mean, being South African, we all know people who live overseas and work for international companies. Like,
yes.
I actually find, I mean, within my peer group, if both your siblings live in South Africa, that is quite strange. Do the experiment with your peer group. And you'll find it's very rare to have all siblings living in South Africa. So this is just an example of we're everywhere. So reach out. And then also using social media. So when I decided to take a more active role in my own kind of marketing and posting more on LinkedIn and getting involved in Facebook groups, that's also a good place to find international
Facebook
clients.
Groups. Interesting. Okay, we need to talk about, please finish what you're saying, and then we need to talk about Facebook groups.
Awesome. So that's how I found my international clients. And again, once you have one, you can ask them if they know anyone. So the snowball effect that I keep going back to. And then you were talking about making more money, hopefully, by having international clients. And I would really urge, it's a drum I've been banging on lately. And I actually was reading an article on Business Tech this morning about the number of companies who are seeking South African talent, but paying South African salaries. And, it's exploitative, in my opinion, because, and I've had personal experiences with friends who are going through this at the moment, where they get into an interview process with an international company and they get excited because they feel like, well, the exchange rate's going to work in my favor. And then they are completely undercut and given some kind of contract with zero benefits. You're expected to provide your own equipment. It's remote work and all the challenges that come alongside that, with no benefits and no compensation for that. So, and there's a lot of that going on at the moment. So I would really caution people
to be aware of.
Not to settle. And I'm not saying that you need to be paid with parity to the equivalent employee in that country.
Absolutely.
So my method is I charge a junior rate, even though I'm a more senior writer. So we both win. I'm still getting more perhaps than I could for South African clients, and the client's also benefiting from paying a little less for the, I guess, perhaps perceived inconvenience of having someone working remotely or across borders. There are a lot of benefits to it too. So that's how I balance that.
That is, I mean, we could go down this rabbit hole for ages. Yes, I've also had a couple of very interesting cold messages in my LinkedIn inbox saying, hey, we're looking for a freelancer. We're going to pay you the equivalent of a junior South African part-time. And just what? Because I think a lot of these companies, and I have former colleagues and friends who are based in India or in other parts of Africa who have similar experiences, and they, cheap labor. That's not what we are. We're professionals. And I think that's something that you absolutely have to be aware of. There are also some horrific scams out there. So it's particularly when you're picking up freelance work, do
ignore Telegram, people, please. If you get anything on Telegram, throw it away. The amount of people, I've been posting a little bit about remote work on TikTok, and I've had about 4 accounts. I don't have a huge TikTok following, but I've had about 4 accounts, 4 scammers spin up accounts and pretend to be me on TikTok. Crazy.
And then DM people and say, offer them work. So this is something that you really, really need to be aware of. If you are uncertain about a gig that has come to you, I've done a whole TikTok video about how to tell if someone is seriously looking to hire you or not. Check out their website. Even if they have a legit email address, that's very easy to mimic. Check out their website, check out their LinkedIn page, look at all their other socials, do your homework, put on your detective cap. Shea, do you have any advice on kind of just, I don't know, figuring out legitimate clients from folks who are looking to either take advantage of you or looking to scam you?
So don't ignore the red flags. I mean, you even see gigs where you have to pay like a subscription.
No,
or
you will
whatever
never
they
have
call
to
it.
pay to do work.
They pay you. That's how work works. You get paid, not the other way around. So run a mile.
I know. If it seems too good to be true.
Exactly. And I mean, also just communication. There's so much you can look out for from the beginning and listen to your gut. And I know it's difficult, especially as a freelancer, because you want work and you know that you're only as good as your next gig and you're always looking for work. You never stop looking for work. So you can be quite vulnerable to these kind of things. And you think, I'll just try, or I'll just settle. Or I wish in my career I'd listened to my gut earlier to avoid red flag situations.
Yeah, it is. I mean, quite apart from the fact that people are underpaying South Africans, the fact that there is a whole industry of South African scammers targeting South African people, or, people in developing countries, probably not just South African people. This is a very small portion of, freelance experiences, but this is something to be aware of. And I will also say, obviously, the Global Talent Company doesn't do freelance, doesn't facilitate freelance gigs. But if you're looking for a remote gig, it's a great idea to go through an agency because there is a degree of protection that they can offer you. It's tough out there. It is super, super tough. Okay, Shea, I'm going back to my list of questions because, again, I've gone down 12. Oh, we wanted to talk about Facebook groups. I'm doing a great job at interviewing today.
Oh, good memory. Impressed. Yeah. So Facebook groups. So, I mean, I know I'm like a real boomer and I still love me a Facebook. It has changed. No one posts their personal pictures anymore, but I actually find
people do.
Yeah, people do.
Mom.
Yeah, exactly. No one really under the age of 50 is using it as that kind of platform anymore. But I've actually gleaned a lot of value from Facebook groups. LinkedIn used to have groups. I think they still do, but those seem to be a bit dead in the water.
They're a mess. Yeah.
Whereas on Facebook, there are a lot of communities for freelancers. Some spammy ones. Stay clear. You'll know once you join whether
that's
it's
where you find
a
bit of scammy stuff as well, I would imagine.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Yeah. Like as soon as you see the background, the purple background, and it says translate PDFs, please run away.
There are some stories.
There's so many.
Okay, yes.
There are so many. But with Facebook groups, there are a lot of like freelancing community Facebook groups. And although that isn't speaking directly to your clients, it's often great to actually find work through fellow freelancers. So someone who has overflow work, or someone who is a web developer who needs a writer, or someone who is looking for a particular service for their business. So, and also it just gives you some good ideas of what's going on in the freelance world. You can ask for help with things that you're struggling with and advice. There's a lot of client horror stories that you see on there too. Gives you some good ideas for what to avoid, the red flag kind of stuff. So I've actually found good value on there, surprisingly. But again, finding the right kind of group is key, like a well-managed, very tight, even if the numbers are large, just finding the right kind of peers that you can speak to.
Okay, that's a great shout. Maybe can you kind of just like share some names of these groups that people can search for them on Facebook if you remember them offhand?
Definitely. So I've got a group. It's not a massive group. It's quite a close-knit community, which I like because it's a very safe space. And it's called Freelancers Who Work Smart, Not Hard. Another one is Freelancing Females, which is great. And then I've got a couple of writing specific ones. So the freelance content marketers one, female freelance creatives. Interestingly enough, it seems like a lot of female only groups are the ones that I've found the most beneficial now that I'm thinking about it.
I'm wondering if those are slightly safer spaces for
perhaps.
women. Yeah, all of my best groups are women only, but I'm in a lot of gaming groups. So, I mean, that's definitely, if you're a woman in gaming, that's a much safer space to be, is women only. But yeah, okay, that's really interesting. I'm going to go and check those out, Shea. Thank you. One of the other things that I did want to talk to you about was kind of coming back to South Africans working internationally. What do you think South Africans bring to the table that is uniquely South African and that makes us such great either freelancers or full-time employees for international companies?
So first of all, I think we're really hard workers. We have a reputation for being hard workers because we are hard workers. And I know this because I have a friend who is so lazy and she went to go work.
Shout out.
Shout out. And she went to go work in the UK and she just got completely glazed and people couldn't get enough of her because she was such a hard worker. So the baseline, our baseline of hard work is really high.
Fascinating. Okay.
Yeah. And then not to mention English proficiency. So, first language English is quite small in South Africa, but a high percentage of the population speak English fluently as a second language. We have a fairly neutral accent, which helps. And I think because of our exposure to different cultures, we're also able to interpret other accents quite well. So you can have two people speaking second language English to one another and able to communicate quite effectively. So I think, our communication skills are good. And then, there is potentially cost savings to be found. Yes, our cost of living is somewhat lower than many European, American nations. So yes, perhaps there are cost savings to hiring South Africans too.
Okay. I love that. And to your point about being able to understand people with different accents, that is such a great point. I have so many colleagues who are second language English speakers who are Spanish or Polish and I have no problems understanding them. But some, it's come up in other conversations where people really, really have to concentrate to understand. Yeah, that's a wonderful point that I've not heard anyone make.
I always
before.
laugh when you see when you're watching something on TV and you see the subtitles come up as soon as there's a foreign accent, that people. It's like, well, I understand.
Okay, well, I have subtitles on permanently. I feel like I can't hear now. I think, I don't know, I'm an elder millennial. I'm getting to that point in my life where subtitles are essential for understanding.
Oh, yes.
Anything.
Oh, no, me too. All for the subtitles.
Yeah.
And something else I must mention. Also, I don't know if you can hear the background noise going on at my house here. Can you hear
Not
anything?
at all.
Okay, good. Then we can edit this out. Because I was going to say another thing we have going on is monkeys on our roofs because it honestly sounds like a thunderstorm where I am right now. So I'm glad you can't hear it.
That's so fun. I love that. Okay, wonderful. We have a mongoose who regularly visits us.
Oh my gosh.
Adorable, but also very, very brave and is now kind of trying to come into the house. Yeah, I talked to my international colleagues about this and they're like, what is a mongoose?
I had once they'd made their way into the kitchen and I just heard crashing and I was in the middle of the meeting with an American client and they just saw me go, monkeys. They were like, WTF. Because I had to go save my kitchen.
My gosh. That's amazing. Okay, so when I lived in London, we had foxes, which was also terrifying. If you have, as a South African living in London, the screaming you hear in the middle of the night, for me, I was bolt upright and I was like, okay, what's happening? Where are we going? Who is in the house?
Who's breaking in?
Right? It was just a fox. It was foxes. What does the fox say? The foxes scream. The monkeys come in the kitchen. Sorry, we have gone down a weird tangent here. I love that. What do South Africans bring to the table? We bring wildlife. As well as all of the other things that Shea mentioned. Okay. I think we have covered everything that I wanted to get to, just checking your questions list. Shea, do you think for folks listening to this podcast, up and coming marketers, is there anything that you would like to share with them that we haven't covered yet?
So something that we touched on a little, or maybe we touched on it before our conversation, I can't remember, was the importance and the most important lesson I've learned as a freelancer is saying no to opportunities in inverted commas that come across your desk. The mistake I made when I was first starting out is taking on any work. Of course, I had a bit of a baseline with regards to my rate, etc. But I would often end up taking on things that A, I didn't really want to do, or B, I wasn't that good at, or C, the client was terrible, or D, wasn't paying me enough. And that really holds you back in your business. And it is a difficult balance because, as I've mentioned, you need money and you're only as good as your last gig. But you've got to look at the opportunity cost. So saying yes to everything means saying no to some other things that might be more wonderful and more beneficial, but you've never had a chance to even know that they exist because you're too in the weeds with everything else you've said yes to. So that is just another tidbit that I wish I'd done differently.
Okay, that is a great point. And that is something I also kind of fall into the trap. As a huge people pleaser, I struggle to say no. And I'm like, oh, you'd like me to work with you? That would be amazing. Oh, you're not going to pay me? Oh, that's fine. No, that's not fine. That is not fine. Sorry, I interrupted you, Shea. What were you going to say?
No, that was my last point. If we're going to end on something, that would be my greatest takeaway and something that I'd really like to urge other people to just say no.
Just say no.
In a nice way.
That's a wonderful note to end. Just be polite. You never know. You don't burn bridges, but just not at this time. Thank you for thinking of me. Shea, where can people find you? So we're going to put your website in the show notes. You're also very active on LinkedIn. You can check out the spelling of Shea's name in the title of this episode. I will quadruple check that to be sure that I get it right.
Luckily, it's only 4 letters.
4 letters. Yes. Okay. We got it. Okay. That was everything that I was hoping to get to today. Thank you so much, Shea, for making the time. Another shameless plug. If you're looking to connect with folks like myself and Shea and other South African marketers, there is a lovely little community where you can do that. SA Tech Marketers is setting up a Slack community for folks who are either looking to level up as marketers in South Africa or looking to connect with other folks. For me, as someone working remotely, that's very important and something that I miss from my previous full-time in-house gigs. So yeah, we'll put the link there in the show notes as well. And that is everything that I had to share. Shea, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate you making the time. And hopefully the monkeys leave you in peace for the rest of your workday.